What's up, Internet? Welcome back. This is Loser22. The Nintendo 64 is a very nostalgic console for me. At the time of receiving this console, I thought it was literally the greatest thing to have existed. In fact, at that moment, nothing else was anywhere near it. I would see gameplay of The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, and Mario 64 and think, this is it. This is literally the greatest thing that exists. Well, in this video, I'm going to do a top 10. Yes, a top 10, because you know everyone does a top 10. And I thought it would be pretty fun. I've never done a top 10, and yeah, top 10s are fun, right? But in this top 10, instead of saying the top 10 best Nintendo 64 games, I'm going to do a top 10 most nostalgic games for me personally. Because I know you guys probably want to hear some random guy on the YouTube talk about games that are nostalgic to him, not necessarily as nostalgic for everyone else. But that's alright. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope I make a good point for every game on this list. And I hope some of them surprise you, and I hope some of them you can nod your head and say, hey, me too. But before I get into it, let me just remind you guys that this is a forum discussion video. So I want to know what your most nostalgic N64 games are, so we can all discuss it down below and subscribe for more content. Before I start this top 10, I just want to mention that these aren't necessarily what I think of as the best 10 Nintendo 64 titles, but these are the 10 titles that I think are very nostalgic for me. And when I think of Nintendo 64, these are usually the games that first go to my mind. There's a few top tier titles that didn't make this list, and it's not because they're not top tier, it's because I played them on other platforms like Virtual Console and whatnot. So over time, they less and less become fused with the Nintendo 64 console itself. And a big example of that is actually Mario 64. So you will not see the best Nintendo 64 game on this list, and that's because I played it on many, many other consoles. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into it. Number 10, the Army Men Sarge's Hero. This is the first and last console that I played any of the Army Men games. I was super into them. I didn't necessarily think that they were great games, but for some reason, everyone I knew had this in their collection. The multiplayer mode was just a thing that we did. It was a game that we eventually got to. After playing a bit of Mario Kart, we would look around in the games and see what kind of games could we play. Army Men was always one of the top games that was just pulled out and we would play. The story mode was okay. It was actually kind of interesting. I remember my imagination going wild because I would be in a bathroom or kitchen or something like that, just walking around as an Army Man. And I would think, man, this is so cool. This is as if there really were Army Men that we were playing as. This game is not necessarily a great game, but it definitely goes on my list of nostalgia. Number 9. Body Harvest. Body Harvest is a game I never understood, I still don't understand, and if I were to play it right now, I just don't know if I would even enjoy it. The reason why it's on here is because at the time when I had a Nintendo 64 going through my collection, I got this strange game called Body Harvest. It was a used game, it was at Blockbuster back when they were doing that Game Rush thing, and I was like, what is this? And I would play it, and it reminded me of Grand Theft Auto. At the time, I haven't played Grand Theft Auto yet. So this idea of open world driving around, destroying these monsters, and not really knowing what's going on, I would play it for hours, and I would just want to know what the hell is going on. I was super into it. Now, it's dated. If you play this game, it's not good. But at the time, it caught my attention so much because I just wanted to know more. It was just a big mystery to me. I would like to know what your guys' experience with this game is because I never actually played it after the fact. And you know what, maybe I should. Maybe I will play it. Let me know if you've played this game and you think it's a game I should return to. Number 8, Mischief Makers. This is an interesting game because it is made by Treasure. And if you know Treasure, they made a lot of great games. They're very flashy and shoot everywhere type of games. In fact, one of my favorite games is Astro Boy for the Game Boy Advance. It's not necessarily like a crazy tough game, although it can get tough. But there's something about it that I've always liked. And the Mischief Makers is no different. I remember playing this game at a friend's house and thinking, whoa, what is this? And I kept returning to that house over and over and over just to play this game. There's another game, but it's on this list, but I don't want to get into it yet. But Mischief Makers is definitely an interesting game, and if you like this game and you want to see more, definitely check out Treasure. They have a lot of great games. I'm not really sure who owns Treasure and any of its IP, but I really hope to see more of their games pop up on the Switch and stuff like that. Number 7, Battle Tanks. Battle Tanks is not necessarily a good game by any means, but my nostalgia with this game is that they had one single missile that worked like a homing attack. So me and some friends would always play as a tank, and we would always use the homing missile because that was fun. It was just fun trying to maneuver that homing missile, and that's pretty much it. Like I said, the game wasn't that good, but I spent a lot of hours playing this game. And then later on in life, someone pulled out a Nintendo 64 and it became a drinking game. So yeah, I love this game because of nostalgia, and that's pretty much where it ends. I would love to see this game, I guess, come back and maybe get some quality of life adjustments. Maybe make every tank have the homing missile so that we can try out the other types of special weapons, because let's be real, everyone wanted to play as the homing missile. Number 6, Gex 64 Enter the Gecko. Gex 64 is not a good platformer. Not at all, but there's one thing I absolutely loved. I loved his charisma, I loved his character, and I loved his quotes. At the time, I never understood any of his references. It's all based off TV and movies. I think the only thing I probably recognized was maybe Looney Tunes in one of the levels. But I love this game and I love this character. I would love for this character to come back and for the company to put some effort into it. I know that Square Enix now owns the rights to this, I believe. I'm not 100%, but I remember they put out a voting thing on Twitter, and a lot of people voted for Gex to come back. I would love to see Gex come back. They could even start with a remake with quality of life adjustments. I would love to see that. But what do you guys think? Does anyone like Gex? He's one of the characters I would have loved to see in Smash, but I understand why he's not in Smash. Number 5, Snowboard Kids. Now, I chose this over 1080, and I played both of those games a lot, but there was something about Snowboard Kids, and I don't understand what it is. That particular game got me drawing my own characters for that game, and I didn't really play it as much as I did 1080. It's just, every time I think of Nintendo 64, I think I want to play that game. I remember enjoying it. This is another example of a game that I would play at my friend's house, which, if you remember when I mentioned the Mischief Makers, I said there was another game. Well, this is it. It was Mischief Makers and Snowboard Kids. I would go to his house just to play these two games. Snowboard Kids, I don't remember if it's a great game. I would like to revisit it. And I do hear that, I believe Snowboard Kids 2, it goes for a lot of money at the moment. Really interested to know why. Number 4, Diddy Kong Racing. Now, I left Mario Kart 64 on this list for one specific reason. I've played Mario Kart 64 on everything. Every time that I build any emulation device, Mario 64 is always one of the first games to go on there. So, unfortunately, Mario 64, even though it has 64 in the title, has lost its ties to Nintendo 64 in terms of my nostalgia. Diddy Kong Racing, on the other hand, the only time I've ever played it was on the Nintendo 64. I know there was a DS version, and I know it's pretty good, but when I think of it, I think of Nintendo 64. This particular game was interesting because it had an adventure mode, and I feel like more games should have taken advantage of this. I'm interested to see what you guys think, because I really like Diddy Kong Racing. That being said, I did not care for the power-ups. I feel like with every mascot racer, that's where they always fail. They always give us power-ups that are not as entertaining as Mario Kart. And like I mentioned, I love the Sega and All-Star Racing games, but it's another example where the power-ups are just not as good. Number 3, Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time is literally one of the best games ever. I love this game. I have played this on other consoles, but I've never finished on any other consoles. It's always kind of a brief playthrough, so it's still connected to Nintendo 64 within my mind. And my experience with this was actually swapping a controller with someone. It's a single player game, but I played it as a multiplayer game where I did some stuff and they did some stuff. I did most of the puzzle stuff because I like puzzles. They did more of the action-oriented stuff because they like action-oriented games. And it worked out, and it was a really fun experience. So I feel like I have kind of a unique experience with Ocarina of Time. I still think it's one of the best games ever. Breath of the Wild is technically better, and I really love Breath of the Wild, so I can't believe a single franchise can actually maintain 2 best games of all time type games. And then let's not even get into Link to the Past, because that could be a 3rd best games of all time. It's just crazy. One franchise holds all those. It's just crazy. Number 2, WWF No Mercy. I am not really into wrestling anymore. When I was young, I kind of liked it. And honestly, it was the video games that really got me into it. WWF No Mercy was the game that I would make custom characters. I loved that game. I would make so many different characters. In fact, my alias that I use on YouTube derived from No Mercy. I actually derived from a different WWF game for the Nintendo 64 that I played first. Don't remember what it was called, but I would make this character named Lizard. It was just Lizard. And he was all green and long hair, and I thought he was so cool. And then when I got WWF No Mercy, instead of making the same character, I took influence from that character and adjusted his name to sound a little more like my name, and that's where I came up with Linzard. Then I thought Erd kind of sound weird, so I took off the D, so I got Linzer, and that's where I am now, and I've stuck with that name for many, many years. And now, number 1, and nobody saw this coming. I'm just kidding, everyone probably saw this coming. It's GoldenEye, because GoldenEye has lived and died on the Nintendo 64. That's the last game that Nintendo published that is part of the 007 franchise. And it's a great game because I have so many memories of just doing multiplayer with this game. I'm not necessarily good at this game. I'm not good at any first-person shooters, to be frank, but this game held my memory, and I love it. I would play it at the facility every single match. Didn't want to play at any other level. Did not care. Did not want to experience anything else. I love this game. I love the little cheat things you can unlock. I'm not even sure if it's called cheats, but it's funny because if you think about it, those are kind of like microtransactions before microtransactions existed, but they were all free. You just unlocked it. I guess you can say that for anything. Any cheat code that you put in a game, any unlockable modes, those now are for sale, when back then you can just type in a password and get it. Like there was like a DK mode where they look like their bodies were oriented like DK or something like that. But yeah, the multiplayer is awesome. The multiplayer is fun. GoldenEye is literally one of my favorite games ever, and it's not even a game I'm that good at, but it's so fun. I can like literally bust this out, and it could be with people who don't even care about video games, and they're having a good time. We're all having a good time, and we can test out different modes. We can do slappers only. Oh my god, this game is so awesome. So what do you guys think? I want to hear what your guys' top 10s are, so leave it down below, and I want to see if you guys can come up with some interesting games that maybe I didn't expect, or maybe all of yours are pretty much by the book, the typical ones. Let me know down below, and if you like discussion videos much like this one, subscribe, and I'll be back with more.